Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Part of the process of holding the thugs in blue accountable for their murders is being relentless. Now, admittedly, I do wish that Breonna Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, had made a big deal of the fact that her daughter's murder was racial. The protection of the murderers certainly was. I still nonetheless give her credit for the fighting that she has done, such as getting the racists in the Louisville City Council to ban no-knock warrants. That was Breonna's law, you'll recall. And like Ahmaud Arbery's mother, she's continuing the fight, which is the right thing to do. She's not taking no for an answer. Now, we already know that the racist DA down in Louisville already made it clear, I ain't doing nothing about it. And of course, at the state level, you have the corrupt bootlicking piece of trash, Daniel Cameron, who, like all bootlicks, he's making his bones with his white supremacist paymasters by offering up a black person as a human sacrifice, in this case, Breonna Taylor. Cameron has done exactly what he knew his racist bosses wanted. They made a point. All these niggers who are getting all of these cops, white cops, indicted. This never happened. Now the thing's done changed. We gotta make a statement. We ain't listening to no niggers. He did what he knew they wanted. To give a public display of some murderous thugs who clearly murdered a black person in cold blood and who everyone points at and says this was clearly illegal, the warrant was fraudulent, attained under perjury, the grand jury went into revolt and denounced Cameron, exposed his lies, and yet he committed political suicide by ignoring all of that just so he could be a shameless operative for white supremacy. Because this isn't about crime. It's about the ability of these white supremacists to murder black people with impunity, with no consequences. That's just one of the perks of being classified as white. You can kill a black person, especially if you got a badge, and ain't nothing going to be done about it. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get a return to status quo ante because we changed the status quo. They're seeing police being held accountable across the board, and that angers them, that enrages them. All of their whining like a bunch of little babies with soiled diapers about, oh, the cops are all going to be resigning. The hell they have. Being a police officer is one of the safest jobs in America. You're getting guaranteed pay for sitting on your butt. I mean, what other job pays you to eat donuts all day? They're definitely not being paid based on how many cases they solve, that's for sure. But the white supremacists are angry because they know that white supremacy is a con, a flimsy con, and any brick taken away from that wall could cause the whole thing to fall down. So while we're seeing these thugs with badges being held accountable, we're looking and going, hey, 2 or 3 of them got held accountable, but there's tens of thousands to go. The white supremacists are looking and going, yeah, and every time you lock one up, that makes it easier to get the next one, and the next one, and the next one. When it comes to charges, the thugs in blue have gone from being Teflon to super glue. Them charges are sticking. See, the problem with black people is we tend, in too many cases, we have conditioned ourselves to not recognize danger until it's right on top of us. And even then, it's a matter of it's got to be some horrible consequences before we look and go, might be a problem here. With these white supremacists, they are exactly the opposite. They are ultra hypersensitive to anything that even might remotely threaten their power or challenge them. And when that happens, they go on full alert, just at the slightest hint that there might be something conceivably that could be a problem. Because when you're trying to protect a lie, that's what you have to do. Right now, they're in a panic. They've seen all of these convictions that have been taking place with others in the pipeline. Tatiana Jefferson's murderer, he's going to be going on trial in a few. The murderers of Elijah McClain, these scumbags and the cops and the paramedics got all of them. That didn't even happen in the Eric Garner case. But in Aurora, Colorado, they got the cops and they got the paramedics indicted. So what they're seeing is, man, across the board, they're under siege. They're in a panic. They're desperate. They got to get some kind of counter momentum going. They need to push the envelope and do it hard. And in order to do that, if you're going to be in a situation where you've had a paradigm shift this hard, if you're trying to get the pendulum to swing back in the other direction, you can't do it gently. What they need is a blatant, egregious example of what is clearly a murder, and to have the authorities ignore the citizens of their own communities, their own voters, to make it very clear, this is the authorities, the people who you voted for, the people who are ruling over you, and they're making it clear, we're giving a license to kill back to the thugs in blue. That's what it is. Oh, you people thought you took away their license to kill. Well, we're giving it back to them. We're willing to lose our political offices for this. We're going to fall on our swords for this one. Yes, it's murder. Everyone knows that it is. It's an outrage. And they're going to stand by the murderers because that's the point. The idea is to reimpose the old status quo. You can't do that with a mild gesture. You have to do something over the top, something offensively obvious. Now, Tamika Palmer is taking her case to Biden's Department of Justice. In fact, she's already had a 45-minute conversation with Kristen Clark. Miss Palmer had her attorney, Benjamin Mushmouth Crump, with her. And by the way, that name Kristen Clark, if it sounds familiar, it should. This is the same Kristen Clark who also talked to Ahmaud Arbery's mother last month after she went behind the family's back to offer Ahmaud's murderers a sweetheart plea deal. And then when the family called them out in court, rather than back down, Kristen Clark's prosecutors told the judge, well, ignore Ahmaud Arbery's family. They're emotional right now. Let the murderers choose where they go to prison. In fact, let them have their choice of whatever comfy, cushy country club, federal facility that they go to. And that will give the family peace. While the family's sitting here saying this would defeat us, this would kill us, this would be a slap in the face. You got Kristen Clark's people saying, ignore them. Do something that's going to insult the family because that'll give them peace. Now, that's what these bastards did in a case where they had the murder on video, where the murderers were caught making all kinds of racist remarks right after the murder. You had their remarks online. I mean, this conviction was handed to them gift wrapped. They had absolutely no reason to offer any kind of plea deal to Ahmaud Arbery's murderers. With all the evidence they had, for God's sake, the conviction was being handed to them on a silver platter with a bow on top. It don't get much more clear than that, because you know full well that if this had been a case where you had a black drug dealer, and they don't even need evidence to get you, they can lock people up for ghost dope, look it up. But even if it was a black drug dealer, they certainly wouldn't have been sitting there saying, let's offer him a plea. They would have been like, we can get a conviction on you because the laws are so slanted in the prosecutor's direction, we don't have to offer you anything. But even with the mountain of evidence against Ahmaud Arbery's murderers, the Biden DOJ offered them a sweetheart plea deal, and this after they had already been convicted in state court. Everybody saw them get convicted in state court. Hell, that alone made it where a federal conviction was all but guaranteed. Convictions don't come more ironclad than that, and yet Biden's DOJ was going out of their way, acting as if there was no evidence whatsoever, because this was something they didn't want to do. That was because of Biden's DOJ, specifically Kristen Clark and Merrick Garland, that piece of garbage. He got confronted on it by a reporter, and Merrick Garland sitting here going, oh, I can't imagine what it's like to have a son killed. That's not what they asked you about. They asked why the world you ignore the family. So Miss Tamika Palmer's got her work cut out for her. She's not going to be fighting alongside the DOJ. She's going to be fighting against them. So she's not only going to be fighting just against the murderers of her child, but also fighting against the corrupt good old boy hierarchy in Kentucky and fighting against Joe Biden's Department of Justice. So far, about the only thing that Merrick Garland has said is that he's opened an investigation into a pattern of practices in the Louisville, Kentucky Police Department. But there's no charges, and that's been going on since at least last year, but apparently nothing's coming out of it. Keep in mind, this is the same Joe Biden who just last week or so was talking about how we need to give the police more money. Didn't say anything about accountability, didn't say anything about if you want more money from us, you're going to have to prove to us that you're not using that money to pay thugs with badges who murder unarmed women in their own doggone apartments. If there's any sort of patterns and practices dispute or any sort of cloud hanging over your police department, you don't get any money. He's not attached it to any sort of performance benchmarks. He hasn't attached it to anything. It's just going to be free money for the murderers. That's music to the thugs with badges' ears, but it tells you exactly what Joe Biden's all about. This is not some election year anything, by the way. It's not a matter of 2022. He was talking this mess from the very beginning. Oh, he only said police accountability when he was in front of black people, though he never specified what that meant. Anyone remember Joe Biden's much ballyhooed police oversight commission? It's supposed to be at the presidential level. It's supposed to be a presidential level police oversight commission. Yeah, as soon as he took the oath of office, he immediately said, oh, that police oversight commission, let Congress handle that. I got too much on my plate. Yeah, I know I made promises, but promises are made to be broken, right? And here's the thing, even if Biden's DOJ actually can be shamed into doing their jobs, here's my question. Do you really want a situation where you got a doggone geriatric racist and his other wrinkled up partner in crime, Merrick Garland, where even with the most basic things, you got to drag them kicking and screaming to do it? You got black people demanding justice, and you got Joe Biden trying to figure out every possible excuse that he can make up or give himself for why he shouldn't have to do it. Benjamin Crump needs to be speaking on that. That's something that he should go ahead and put his mush mouth to work speaking on. And speaking of Benjamin Crump, at least this is adjacent to him, where's his partner Sleaze Merritt at? Last time we heard Sleaze's name being bandied about, you had Mushmouth Crump saying that I'd like to congratulate my friend Sleaze Merritt for running for Attorney General of the great state of Texas. Okay, and how'd that work out? Well, as we see, Sleaze Merritt's dreams of hitting the political scene with a splash crashed and burned. He came in third among the Democratic primary candidates for Texas Attorney General. And for the few people out there who might have been holding out some thin, wavering candle of hope that maybe if Sleaze Merritt was in a higher position, he might discover that maybe he needs to actually be doing something for someone other than himself, other than talking about black rape culture. Well, please, that man was never going to be doing anything other than trying to climb the political ladder. This was just his own personal pet project for how Sleaze Merritt was going to improve his place in the world. So for those of you who had your fingers crossed for him, because I'm not so naive as to think that there's not a few chuckleheads who might have been keeping their fingers and toes crossed for Sleaze Merritt, sorry, but he's going to have to go back to chasing ambulances full time. One of the suggestions that I think needs to be made is that whenever there happens to be a case like this, especially if you got somebody who's in city or state government who's been accused of murder, and it seems pretty obvious that the powers that be are clearly not trying to investigate and not trying to prosecute, the families of these people need to be able to have a special prosecutor appointed themselves. The only bar to it would be, hey, can you get it past a grand jury? Because as you saw with Jussie Smollett, they were willing to spend 3 years and millions of dollars just so that the Chicago PD's racist police union could feel as if they got some sort of payback for the murderer Jason Van Dyke, which is what this was really all about. Now, if they're willing to waste resources like that and they got to have a special prosecutor for something that barely even qualifies as a felony, it's only a felony on paper, that never actually gets prosecuted. How many people have actually gone to prison for giving a false police report? The cops don't, and a lot of these white supremacists out here, they don't either. I can't think of anyone, and neither can you. But all of a sudden, we need a special prosecutor. We got to get this guy. He's our top priority. He's Chicago's most wanted. Give me a break. But if all that effort is good enough for Jussie Smollett, if the police union can demand a special prosecutor, somebody outside of the normal chain of command, because they just feel as if Kim Foxx isn't going to go through with this, so they need to bring in someone who will. In that case, the victims of police murders and brutality, they also should have the ability to appoint their own special prosecutor, somebody who's going to make sure that justice gets done. But that's what they don't want. They want to have a situation where only the thugs with badges, especially if it's a case that clearly is racial in nature, well, we got to make sure that black people don't have that ability. That way, we've insulated ourselves from all punishment. The types of laws and regulations and rules that need to be put in place to make sure that these thugs with badges get what they deserve, which is harsh punishment, our work has only just begun. We got to make sure that there are as many avenues as possible so that their friends in the DA's offices and these corrupt judges are taken out of the loop. And there also need to be mandatory sentencing guidelines. Same way that they want mandatory guidelines specifically for drugs, well, we need mandatory guidelines for anybody with a badge who's convicted. You assault someone, that's automatic 25 years. You kill someone, that's automatic life. And if there's any sort of aggravating circumstances, that should be automatic death penalty. That should be a capital crime. That's how you change the culture of these police departments. You do it by making sure that they are punished as harshly as possible. There is no other way. And by the way, since there is no statute of limitations on murder, that being the case, there's also other avenues to be explored. That racist DA down there in Louisville, that scumbag needs to be out immediately. Black folks can get it done if they focus on that, but that seems to be part of the issue. Black folks are hoping there's going to be some white political party who's going to do it for them. The Democrats are the ones who run that city. They're the ones who did this in the first place. So you had the Democrats at the local level and the Republicans at the state level who are both working arm in arm to make sure that Breonna Taylor's murderers don't ever get punished. Black folks need to recognize when they're up against an organized defense. And don't give me any garbage about, well, black folks can't get it done. Black people can get done whatever it is we focus on. Keep in mind, the reason that Breonna's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, didn't get railroaded is because black folks down there had already made sure to put a good judge, an honest judge, Olu Stevens, on the bench. And he was the one who got that case when it came up. And he was the one who looked and said, ain't going to be no railroadings going on today. So the lesson that I hope black folks take away from this, when you look at what Ahmaud Arbery's mother had to go through and is still going through because she's trying to make sure that the racist DA, Jackie Johnson, whatever the hell her name is, that she gets held accountable. And you look at what it is that Breonna Taylor's mother's going through. These scumbags are going to have to be handled by us. Nobody's doing it for us. But like Ahmaud Arbery's mother, we're going to have to be playing offense. On all sides, like I've been telling you for years, we're going to have to make the system do things it wasn't designed to do. The system was designed to kill black people with impunity. It was designed to ignore us. It was designed to let the white supremacists off the hook. Unless you're going to be getting in the guys' faces, make sure that you are fighting them every step of the way. Call them out and expose them. Fight them in the courts. Fight them in front of the cameras. Make sure that every time they look up, here you are. That's what Ahmaud Arbery's mother did. And force them to do something they were not supposed to do. They weren't supposed to be making sure that these bastards got convicted. They were supposed to be letting these guys off light. But that's what it's going to take. How do you stop the next gang of cops from murdering a black person? By making sure the last ones who did it get punished harshly. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Nigel Davis, Eddie Newsom, Racer Bo, Dark Black, and Sabrina. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.